It is now my pleasure to introduce to you today's speaker. Lieutenant Shaye Haber attended the United States Military Academy and graduated in 2012 with an undergraduate in International Legal Studies. After commissioning, she attended flight school at Fort Rucker, Alabama, where she graduated in the fall of 2013 and became an Apache pilot. As of August 2015, she became the first woman to be qualified ranger in the United States Army. Currently, she is stationed at Fort Carson, Colorado as a platoon leader in Alpha Troop, 6th Squadron, 17th Cavalry Regiment. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to present to you today Lieutenant Haber.
Good morning. You guys hear me okay? Okay. This venue is much larger than what I spoke to yesterday, and yesterday was my first time. I hope we didn't have to turn anybody away, so that's good. As you were coming in, I'm sure you heard a song I'm sure you weren't expecting to hear as you came in. That was from me. I actually listened to that song on repeat from my drive from Colorado to Georgia on my way to Ranger Assessment Training course. So that was to get my mind right and to get a little bit motivated. I love the verse where he says that, say I won't, and I bet I will, you say I won't. So in my mind, I was just getting myself prepared for the unknown. I didn't know where I was going or what I was going to expect when I got there, but this really helped me. That song's by Lecrae, and it's called Say I Won't. So first of all, as you know, my name is Lieutenant Haver. I want to start off by saying that this conference is the first time that I have publicly told my story. It is extremely personal, and I thank you for affording me the opportunity to level with you, to be extremely real, and to share it with you. I would probably label myself more as an introvert, not so much because I'm not willing to share my story, just because that's who I am. I tend to be a better listener than a talker. So I hope throughout my speech today that you guys will be interactive. Please, get loud and excited. That'll help me, and that will make me a little bit more comfortable as we continue forward. My hope is that you walk away with the fact. Good. My hope is that you walk away with the fact that ordinary people can do extraordinary things, that you don't have to be a superhuman to do anything or something that matters. When you look at me, you may see modern history, or as my ranger buddies so affectionately called me, a unicorn, one of three. But I see this. Baby wearing daddy's flight gear. This is me. At about 3 years old, my destiny was already manifesting itself, and I didn't even know it. From the time I was born at Fort Huachuca, Arizona, until today, I've never known anything other than the military lifestyle. My family traveled all over the country and abroad, following my father as he pursued his career as an Army helicopter attack pilot, first in Cobras and then in Apaches. After retiring from the Army with over 20 years, he is currently working for Boeing as a subject matter expert in the aircraft that I fly today. I didn't always want to be a pilot. Actually, I originally thought that I was going to go to the Air Force Academy and become a doctor, but apparently you have to be a genius for that to happen. So when I got accepted to the Air Force prep school for the 5-year plan, I decided that I would take my chances and slum it up at West Point instead. All right, so this is me again at Cadet Basic Training. While I was at the academy, I took the opportunity to participate and develop myself with a handful of different club sports and activities. I was on the triathlon team, the rock climbing team, and the strength and conditioning team where we coached a lot of the D1 teams. I had the privilege of working with a lot of our women's D1 teams at West Point. Oh, and even better, I decided to join our CrossFit team so I could crush Air Force in the process. These experiences really built my physical foundation for endurance, core strength, grip strength, picking up really heavy and awkward things and putting them down. In addition to finding ways to physically develop and mature, I volunteered for a number of different leadership positions throughout my cadet career. I wanted to use the opportunity I was given at the academy to really define what kind of leader I wanted to be. It was actually really hard for me to pick my branch when the time came. My dad encouraged me to try something different, but I had no real familiarity or interest in anything else other than aviation. I knew I wanted to be in the middle of the action, to maneuver on, close with, and destroy the enemy, but no other choices available to me were as seemingly fulfilling as being an aviator. So, on branch night, when I so gloriously opened my envelope to find my aviation branch waiting for me, I was extremely thrilled, as you can tell by my face. Whether I was going to be taking troops to the fight or defending them, I felt like that was exactly where I wanted to be. Flight school continued to reaffirm for me that the passion I had for supporting the troops on the ground, and when the time came, I chose the job where I thought that made the most sense. Apache helicopters are used as close combat support on the battlefield. Aerial weapons teams generally consist of 2 Apaches and have direct communication with the ground forces when they check on station or respond to troops in contact. It is the responsibility of the Air Commission Commander, whoever's in charge of that flight, to directly communicate, and he is also the one that passes the information to the rest of the team. Simultaneously, they will maneuver and place munitions effectively on the enemy without causing any harm or damage to friendly personnel, sometimes very nearby. The pilot in command of each helicopter is ultimately responsible for where each round fires and lands. The ground forces place a lot of trust in the accuracy and the competence of the pilots, and it is our job to never let them down. Not many people know how the 18 of us got to Ranger School on the 19th of April, 2015. I cannot speak to their stories, but as for mine, I had heard about Ranger School and the pilot program that they were about to start for the women as the Army conducted their initial output in October was about the time frame. They sent out an ALERACT Army-wide discussing what their plan was moving forward, specifically stating this would be a one-time thing. Basically, information provided stated that it was a one-time volunteer assessment, that it would afford a woman to wear the Ranger tab if she graduated, but it would not qualify her for any combat arms positions. It specifically stated that the program would be fully integrated and that all the same passing criteria would be maintained. Essentially, it was the Army's attempt to explore the feasibility of opening male-exclusive military schools and jobs, such as the infantry and Army branches, while affording women, for the first time in history, the opportunity to participate in the world's premier military leadership school. I didn't pay much attention to that ALERACT, other than the passing thought that I had seen many of my male friends and classmates attempt the school, some successful and some not, but all of whom with stories of how miserable of an experience it was. I was totally supportive of anyone who would want to put themselves through something so difficult. As for the women who I believed were about to volunteer, my comments exactly were, good for those girls, I hope they crush it. A couple weeks later, the beginning of November, as my unit was preparing for a gunnery, an aerial gunnery, which I'm currently going through now, I was notified by my company commander that our deputy commanding general, Brigadier General George, was going to be flying in the front seat of one of my aircraft, and that I should probably be there when it launched to make sure that we didn't do anything to make ourselves look bad. Brigadier General George is not an aviator, but an infantryman, and it just so happens that a general has the authority to waive the requirements for 2 rated crew members to fly an Apache, and he took that opportunity and learned the capabilities of the Apache firsthand. As my battalion commander was showing Brigadier General George around our facilities, he stopped to take a moment and introduce me. My commander is very much a people person and loves to share the accomplishments of his soldiers. Embarrassingly, though, to me, he told him that I was just had qualified for the Boston Marathon, and I was a physical stud in his book. Brigadier General George nodded kindly and looked at me with a very serious face and asked if I was interested in going to Ranger School. Not really knowing what I thought about the situation in the first place, I fumbled out some words and asked if I could possibly talk to him about this after I had successfully completed my first aerial gunnery. After we launched the aircraft, my battalion commander came over to me, poking fun and saying that Brigadier General George was serious, and he thought that it would be really great if I went to Ranger School. I just smiled and hoped that everybody would just forget about the whole thing. Shortly after gunnery, I found myself in the battalion commander's office again. Fort Carson was building an OML for the women who were interested in going to Ranger School, and it was going to be based on a series of events that I would later come to know as Ranger Assessment Phase, which is the first week of Ranger School and accounts for approximately 80% of the people cut during the first phase. He told me that it was a really important thing for the Army. He didn't know what it would entail, and that he didn't think that he could ever do it, but he encouraged me to give it a shot. Hesitantly, I accepted and started my journey towards April 19th. So here's where I'm gonna level with you, and the kicker. I did not want to go to Ranger School at all. I did not want to subject myself to the trials of being the first. I did not want to answer to my peers and fellow pilots while I was volunteering to do something that added no value to my skills as an Army aviator. I didn't want to fail. I didn't know what to do, and so I prayed. It was only after that that I realized that what I was being asked to do wasn't about me at all. With the complete support of my chain of command, I put all of my things into storage, left my dog with my parents, and it didn't come back until I had my tab. Throughout this next slide, it's a video. You'll hear the conversations between ground force and pilots. I apologize for any vulgar language, as attack pilots get a little excited when they blow up bad guys. So, if you'll watch this video.
Currently have no active Rosses or Ravens. We have Gator 6 in contact with 10 AIF. That's 10 enemy. Small arms RPG contact at grid 3809er 8180. 3809er 8180. Call sign is Gator 6. Go ahead and push you down to his net. It's Fox 123. Fox 123, call sign Gator 6. Confirm station time, over.
Long night, Gator 6. Need you to screen south 200 meters. See if you can identify the guys that are in contact.
Okay, there's somebody. What the fuck is that asshole doing?
Right, understand.
He's hiding behind
200 meters.
There's three guys running up there in the back.
We're searching right now.
Four guys moving in pack.
Should be in the vicinity of that fire. They're 200 meters south of my location, over.
Roger, your spot out for that. Yep, he's got a weapon on the right. We got him with weapons here.
Gator 6, Blue 1, over. Blue 1, Gator 6, over.
Roger, I've got positive ID on the weapons as well. Roger,
Hey, 6 Delta, relay.
These are bad guys.
Blue 1, 6 Delta, over.
6 Delta, Blue 1, turning now.
Okay, what's that? That guy's shooting right there. Yep. Okay.
Time now, over.
I'm wasing up.
Gator 6, this is Commission 7 Delta. My Astro is the back 2 up in the area.
He's got a big weapon too. He does. Okay, it's a cruiser weapon in this location.
6 Delta, over.
Keep pause.
Send it.
Roger, Blue Element, turning west into Honeybun 5, over.
Roger, I got it. 7 Delta, Gator 6, hit rep. Gator 6, catch 7 Delta.
She lays in store? She lays in store? I laid in store earlier. You keep turning so I can stay on this camera. He's running down this way now. He's shooting.
Okay, he's still shooting up in the air right now. We see him.
Got PID, just tell me when you're breaking off. I'll continue orbit.
Only thing that's bad about it is that it's an IA station.
I know.
Go ahead. We're south of where contact from RPG is coming from.
He's starting to get in the truck.
Get lights on, blink beepers on our Kevlar brake. This is Raider 3. If you observe crew serve weapons or you observe individuals with weapons, you are clear to fire.
All right, coming in down.
Juliet Bravo, Mike.
Missile WASD. Left side.
It's Big White 2. It's Big White 2, Gator 6. What's your location?
Confirm your inbound.
We're inbound.
Gator Mike, Y1 Delta radio.
Check these guys. Yep.
Gator 6.
Light off the laser.
Stand by for grid.
I don't.
All right. Solid box, go.
I'm not by a map, man. I'm up top.
Solid box.
Shoot.
Firing.
Sit rep on
Muscle way.
Gator 6, Comanche 7. I'm on your net now. I can't, I don't. Oh!
Gator 6, this is long quadrant 4, PR4, Hellfire, over. Hey, Buck, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Keep screening south, and I want you to screen west, 200 meters west from my front line trace.
Good shot.
200 meters west from my front line trace. Report anybody with weapons, over. Roger, that's good copy. Just want to make sure where that impacted. That was nowhere near your friendlies, Roger. That was direct. That was right where they were making contact from. That was where Commanding 7 wanted, over.
Why did I go to Ranger School? I went to Ranger School for the specialist who just lost his chain of command in an ambush and is pinned down, never before talking on the radio to an Apache helicopter, trying desperately to communicate and direct munitions on the enemy to save himself and his friends. I went to Ranger School for the Special Forces JTAC, who calmly requests immediate aerial suppression for his team and the local civilians as they attempt to maneuver away from insurgents, barraging them from high ground. I went to Ranger School for the Rangers, who are dropped off behind enemy lines, navigating under cover of darkness, so that they know that they aren't completely alone and someone is watching from above until their mission has been accomplished. I went to Ranger School because I needed to know how to keep American soldiers alive. I am an Army aviator, an Apache helicopter pilot, and my chosen profession brings me much pride. But I am not the nation's greatest asset. I proudly recognize my role in support of those who are, and that's our ground soldiers. Why wouldn't I want to know everything that I can about how and why they do what they do? What better way than to put myself in their shoes? I didn't go to Ranger School so that I could prove I could do their job too, but so that I could do mine better. I went to Ranger School in order to be a more tactically competent leader. General H. Norman Schwarzkopf Jr. gave a speech to the Corps of Cadets at West Point in 1991, following the coalition victory in Desert Storm. And he addressed what he thought the attributes of a 21st century leader should be and what it takes to lead in battle. Competence and character is what he said. You can't have one without the other to become a great leader, and great leaders are what the sons and daughters of America deserve. Your level of competence will be directly reflected by how your subordinates follow you. Your character will directly reflect what type of leader you are. It is an honor and a privilege to be entrusted with the burden of leadership. It is often called a lonely road, where you are required to choose the harder rights over the easier wrong, to choose courage when you have none, and to be the example where there is none to follow. The reasons I went to Ranger School aren't radical or any more compelling than the men who volunteered to do the same thing. The desire I had to become effective should be the goal of all leaders in our profession. To become more tactically and technically proficient is our job. I made it my responsibility to my soldiers and the soldiers on the ground, not only to pass Ranger School, but to live up to the reputation for being a more elite soldier. Ranger School, just like our military at large, is an all-volunteer opportunity. You have to want to be there. Embrace the suck together in order to will your way through many uncomfortable situations. Whether it's freezing cold or scorching hot, sometimes the same in the same day, your body is wasting away from malnutrition. Ranger School is meant to create an environment of complete stress to your body. Through this, you can expect to find your personal limits, strengths and weaknesses, what motivates you, and your true grit. Mission accomplishment is not an option, and it forces you to rely on your teammates around you to get the job done. You see, Ranger School isn't about you at all. It's about building teams. It's about executing sound tactics, whether it's your day to be the leader or it's your day to be the follower. Your competence, work ethic, and dedication to the team doesn't just affect you. It could be the difference in your unit moving together to the next phase, or you causing yourself, or even worse, someone else, to receive a no-go. The key is to become an asset to your team based on the facts that they can trust you, that your character is sound, and that you are capable of the tasks that you have been assigned. Essentially, competence. There are two different kinds of Ranger School graduates, those who wear the tab and those who bear the tab. What makes the tab so prestigious and worthy of all the pain it takes to earn it is the creed for which it stands. Those that live by that creed bear the burden and the privilege of upholding the traditions and reputation of all those that have come before them. Half of the battle was earning my tab. Now the real challenge comes from bearing it for the rest of my life as a leader. Why should anyone follow me? I'm sure sometimes you might ask yourself the same question. I started to develop myself as a leader, obviously, back at West Point. I didn't know what I was doing. I don't know if you know what you're doing here, but the good news is you have plenty of time to figure it out. Here is where you should practice, trial and error, and you'll figure yourself out. But please don't confuse my being a first as being a leader. I suppose I led the way for more females to have the same opportunity as me. I have helped open a door for others to blaze their own trail through. Of course, I hope that it has inspired others, men and women alike, to challenge themselves and to seize opportunities. But I have a long way to go as an Army officer and a leader in our profession. I am not combat tested. There has been no opportunity for others to follow me into battle. The truth is that I found myself at the right place at the right time. And that is something that you can never predict. What you can do, though, is seek opportunities, even ones that terrify you. You have to dare to fail. I still face obstacles, the same ones that you do in reference to experience and repetition. My pursuit of competence is never ending, and neither should yours be. And I'm sure you can relate. As my job changes, my rank changes, the battlefield changes, new challenges will call on specific attributes and skills. It is our duty to never become stagnant, but to commit to being competent leaders of character so that our soldiers, airmen and women, can trust us to make the right decisions under pressure. I'm extremely proud to be a West Pointer. I completely bought into the values of duty, honor, country as a cadet, and recognized early on how great an honor it is to serve our nation in any capacity. Rules and regulations, roles and traditions, ranks, history, they help us to never forget where we came from and what we stand for. Every once in a while, people who recognize me from the many news articles and pictures that are unfortunately all over the internet, they stop me and often say nice things, ask for a picture, and to which I usually comply. I'll smile, nod, and say thank you. One particular instance, however, a lady at the airport in Philadelphia stopped me. I was traveling back from Army-Navy football game this past November. And after asking me for a picture with the whole family, like cousins and everybody, she shook my hand and she said, "Thank you for what you stand for." Her words really struck me. I didn't know her, and she didn't know me, obviously. So what on earth did she think I stood for? That poor lady had no clue what she stirred up inside of me as I spent the better part of that flight in contemplation. As I am sure her intentions were innocent, and in reference to the breaking down barriers, I have to confess that I never thought about my experience in going to Ranger School as being influential. I do now, however, accept the implications, and I recognize the policy changes and conversations it has influenced. I also take responsibility to share my experience and encourage others. But for me, it was very personal. There were moments that I was at my worst, when I was fighting to find the motivation to keep going, when both my mind and my body were telling me to stop. Probably the most personal moment that I ever had and that I'll probably ever share is about one particular night in mountain phase, the second phase of Ranger School. We would conduct these marches that would take us to locations where we would posture out of for the following days, follow-on missions. We called these marches a walk till dawn, which they literally were. The mountains of North Georgia pale in comparison to the mountains here in Colorado. But in the middle of the night, when you are delirious, out of your mind, you've been on the move for 4 days at a time, wearing that rucksack for hours at a time, carrying a weapon that in total added approximately 3/4 of my weight to my body. My mind started to go places that I never thought it would go. I call these long walks the Trail of Tears, as you could hear sniffling and these contemplations and the babbling of others. However, I do want to caveat by saying Rangers do not cry. You see, everyone has a breaking point. Not everyone is fortunate enough to find out what theirs is, but on this particular night, I found mine, and it was terrifying. I convinced myself that I was blind. It was so dark that I couldn't see anybody or anything. I convinced myself that I was alone because my body was starting to overheat and my ears were getting so hot that they were muffled. I convinced myself that I was lost, which then caused me to sporadically start running, and then I would stop because I was exhausted and felt like I was probably wrong anyways, but I was so confused in my head that I kept telling myself that it was time to just give up. In these moments, the coolest things happen. Out of complete desperation and surrender, I began to remember 2 things that gave me the inspiration I needed to defeat my mind that night. First, that everything, I mean everything, doolies, is temporary. I began to chant under my breath the word one. One more step, one more breath, one more pound, one more inch, one more mile. You can always do one more. This feeds into a mantra that I adopted while I was preparing for Ranger School. Every time, like it's the last time. In my mind, I had nothing to lose by throwing everything that I had into going to Ranger School. Before I left, I made it my job to only focus on that task. At that time, I was never again going to have the opportunity to learn the skills that Ranger School could afford me, and the challenges that my leadership skills would learn, that I could grow and experience from, and I wasn't going to let that go to waste. Literally moving out of my apartment where I was in Colorado, driving completely into the unknown, I was committing to do everything, every time, like it was the last time. One more, just one. Secondly, I remembered that I wasn't there for myself, and I began to name out loud who I was there for. Giving me motivation was the faces, the names. It was incredibly helpful. I was there for my soldiers, and I began to name them one by one under my breath so that they could be proud to follow me and know that I would never quit or give up on them. I was there for the ground soldiers and my friends and classmates that I had graduated from West Point with so that they knew that I was a more competent leader for going through and sticking with something that they themselves were required to do. And I named them. I was there for my mom because she believed in me to do incredible things even when I was terrified and didn't have the courage to do it on my own. I was there for the girls that I had initially started with that did not continue on, that I had become close to. They were my friends, and I wanted them to have the opportunity to succeed. And if just one of us could make it, maybe. So I named them one by one. I was there for little girls. The little girls that have big dreams because in some ways I hope that it helped them to never be told they couldn't do something ever again. And I was doing it for my teammates right there at that moment that were around me and that would lose an able body to help them on the next day's mission if I quit. You see, all that ruck equipment that I was carrying had to go somewhere, and if I wasn't carrying it, someone else would. I determined that I could not let these people down. And just about the same time that I conquered my mind, the formation stopped. The faintest light was starting to expose itself in the distance, and dawn had finally arrived. So coming back to the lady at the airport, what do I stand for? Equality, women's rights, girl power? No. Although I am very proud and happy to be a woman, I am grateful for the opportunity I had to share the experience at Ranger School that I did with the men that were there, and that I was able to show them that there are women out there in our military that are willing and worthy and capable of fighting beside them. I stand for much more than that. When I chose to raise my right hand and swear to support and defend the Constitution, I was committing to a profession of service to our nation, where we are protectors and defenders of the American way of life, where we stand for liberty and justice, honor and sacrifice, courage and integrity. We stand for the American dream. We stand for committing ourselves to excellence. That's why you're here. We stand for bringing all of our soldiers back alive. We stand for tactical and technical competence that makes us an elite fighting force against our enemies. We stand for bravery in the face of uncertainty and peril. We stand for love. So that when everything else around you is falling to pieces, you can be sure that the person next to you or above you will give their life in order to save yours. I look forward to more challenges, bigger ones, life and death ones. In my future, I will continue to seek opportunities to develop my skills as a technical and tactical competent aviator and a tactical competent officer. I will continue to push myself physically and mentally to set an example for my peers and my soldiers. Recognizing that I volunteered as a Ranger, fully knowing the hazards of my chosen profession, I will always endeavor to uphold the prestige, honor, and esprit de corps of the Rangers, acknowledging the fact that a Ranger is a more elite soldier who arrives at the cutting edge of battle by land, sea, or air. I accept the fact that as a Ranger, my country expects me to move further, faster, and fight harder than any other soldier. Never shall I fail my comrades. I will always keep myself mentally alert, physically strong, and morally straight, and I will shoulder more than my share of the task, whatever it is, 100% and then some. Gallantly will I show the world that I'm a specially selected and well-trained soldier. My courtesy to superior officers, neatness of dress, and care of equipment shall set the example for others to follow. Energetically will I meet the enemies of my country. I shall defeat them on the field of battle, for I am better trained, and I will fight with all my might. Surrender is not a Ranger word. I will never leave a fallen comrade to fall into the hands of the enemy, and under no circumstances will I ever embarrass my country. Readily will I display the intestinal fortitude required to fight on to the Ranger objective and complete the mission. Though I be the low survivor, Rangers lead the way. When I left for West Point, I was a scrawny 17-year-old, straight out of high school, but I knew two things: that I wanted to do something with my life that had meaning, and I wanted to belong to something much bigger myself, as I'm sure a lot of you here today have the feeling. I'm never going to stop pursuing great leadership because it's the right thing to do. It is what my soldiers deserve, and it is what my nation expects of me as a professional. I am here to tell you that truly ordinary people can do extraordinary things if only they are willing to rise to the challenge. Stay humble, work hard. Thank you.
Lieutenant Haber, on behalf of the Cadet Wing, thank you for sharing your humbling story. The floor is now open for questions. I will give you a cue and for our last question. Thank you.
All right. This is my favorite part because I really hate talking and listening is much easier for me. So, first question, please.
Major Tuzolino from the Center for Character and Leadership Development.
Sir.
Good morning, Lieutenant Haber. Thank you for being here today.
Yes, sir.
We're all honored to hear your story. But a lot of folks in the audience may not know really what peer evaluations at Army courses are and what they're about and how important they are. Can you talk about peer evals in general and specifically the peer evals that you received and wrote during Ranger School?
Sure. So at the end of each phase, we have an administration day. Basically, you sit around for like 48 hours, no sleep, and allow the Ranger instructors to evaluate your scores. So how you pass Ranger School is by passing patrols, by not getting more than 3 no-goes in any specific task, which you can get for falling asleep at a machine gun or not supporting your chain of command. And you would not be, you would be surprised that a lot of people end up getting, no-goes for that reason. Thirdly is the peer review system. Essentially, at the end, everyone has to enumerate every person in their squad. The ability that they had to work together as a team, it has to do with their character, it has to do with their personalities sometimes, their work ethic, and honestly their tactical, their competence, because ultimately you don't want to bring dead weight with you onto the next phase. So it actually is probably the most brutal part of Ranger School. Finding out from your peers how well or how awful you're doing can be a very humbling and scary experience because those are the people that you're fighting with. Those are the people that you're going to be fighting with when you get out of that school, and their opinions really, really do matter. So for the assessments that I did on my peers, I really looked at who was always willing to step up, who was always willing to volunteer for something, who was able to take the following position when it was time to follow and be able to step back and let the leader be the leader. Sometimes that's difficult for people, especially in our profession. We're ready to go, and take responsibility for things. I found it actually very fulfilling, and I kind of knew once this happened after the first phase. Unfortunately, I was recycled and had to do the first phase 3 times, but every single time I got my peer reviews, they were the top of the company. They were, and the second time through it was the highest. That was the highest in my company altogether. I took that to heart. I thought that meant that they had accepted me. I thought that had meant that I truly was a value added and that they respected that I was there, that they figured out on their own, and it wasn't me telling them that I was worthy of being there. They figured it out on their own that I was worthy of being there. So that, to me, that peer review and getting those results, because you do get an outbrief from the Ranger instructors before you move to the next phase, they were always very surprised. And I was also always very surprised to have been peered so highly and to have been accepted into that community. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, sir. Next question, please.
Hi there. Cadet Third Class Anthony Willis, Squadron 4. All right, my question is, on December 3rd, 2015, Defense Secretary Ash Carter released all combat roles to females who can meet the gender-neutral requirements. What are your thoughts on this?
I'm excited. I really like my job as an I really like my job as an aviator. I don't know where I'm going from here. My next step is going to the career course. I'll pin captain in May and go from there. But I have seen plenty of my classmates, people I graduated from West Point with, women that I work with, who are perfectly capable and willing and driven to go and do those jobs that are about to be opened up. So I'm excited for it. I'm ready to see my peers. I think that you guys are the generation that's ready to do that, to do that integration. I think that's a leadership thing, but I'm excited about it. My thoughts on it are, I think it's about time. We've been doing it a long time. I think that we're at the place where the men and women respect each other in the workplace enough for it to be a good thing moving forward. Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Morning, Ranger.
Morning, sir.
Ranger Tatka, class 94-2.
Rangers lead the way, sir.
Hua. Before I ask my question, I just want to let you know something. I have 2 daughters at home. My youngest is 12 years old. And she has on her walls all the normal stuff a preteen or teenager would have, but she also has a Ranger Creed that sits right above her bed. I never thought in a million years that she would ever have this opportunity to go to Ranger School. So I thank you for that.
Yes, sir.
Also, here at the Academy, I'm the one that if these cadets decide they want to go in the Army, I'm the guy that does that.
Hua.
And yet, last year we put a cadet in, and her main goal is to go to Ranger School.
That's awesome, sir.
So if you don't think you're having an impact, think again. My only question is, do they still serve blueberry pancakes at the end of mountain phase?
Yes, they
Hoo-ah!
Good morning, ma'am. C4C Brianna Martinez, Cadet Squadron 25.
Good morning.
Ranger School was a challenge, but what has been your biggest challenge since graduating?
Since graduating, okay. Fully integrating back into my unit was what I wanted to do. I did not want to go on this media parade or anything like that. I specifically went to Ranger School to go back to my unit and to do the things that I, had learned and what I wanted to move forward with in my career. So the hardest thing, honestly, has been the opinions of my peers. So when I left, everybody kind of had an idea. Aviators don't generally go. They do. There's some aviators with Ranger tabs out there, but it's not typically a school that we send aviators to. So my peers had a little bit of hurt feelings and things that I was being selected to go. To that I said, go do the Ranger assessment phase and get back to me on that. But it's not something that I just want to go. You have to have your mind, heart, body into it. I tell people all the time, if you show up only physically capable for all of the assessments, then you're not going to make it. It's your mind that gets you through Ranger School. So the challenge coming back is for people saying, like, I'm not at work today. I'm a pilot, and 2 nights ago, luckily I didn't have to do this last night, but 2 nights ago, I was flying and shooting gunnery until 3 in the morning. So then I had to be here, by 7 and to meet, my cadet escort. But I was not going to not do my job to be here because I'm trying to reiterate to them that, hey, I did this for you. I did it for you guys too, so that we can have this conversation. And this sometimes is the harder thing for me. But for them, and they know that. And so me not being there right now, I just hope that they get to see how hard I work every day, and they get to see the reasons why I went, and I think they're coming around. But there are still some hurt feelings out there. So I think that's my challenge. Like I said, I'm just a lieutenant. I'm the bottom of the totem pole. You're the bottom of the totem pole here. I'm the bottom of the totem pole where I come from. So being the lieutenant with all the duties, in the Army, it's a little bit different. In aviation, you're a full-time platoon leader, and you're a full-time pilot. It's like having 2 full-time jobs. And so any time that takes away from that, people notice. And so I just try to give them as much time as I can, engage them the best that I can when I have the time with them, while still getting the opportunity to do these things. Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good morning, LT.
Good morning.
Congratulations.
Thanks, sir.
Chris Shaye, West Point, class of 99. The long gray line is proud of you.
Thank you, sir.
The question, so your humility, based on your accomplishments, is one of the most inspiring aspects that we can see here this morning, and I'm sure you carry yourself that way at all times. Like it or not, you've now earned some degree of celebrity around the country, around the world, around the military. How will you manage that and balance that with your career. And because there's kind of a calling on you now to share your story because you are an inspiration. I just wonder how you're going to balance the two things and what your plan is for that.
All right, thank you. So I got asked kind of a similar question yesterday, and it was a cadet, and it stumped me. So congratulations. But I've had a little bit more time to think about it. So I do recognize the responsibility that I have to share it, and I don't take that lightly because when I was a cadet, I so desperately wanted to know the answer. I don't have the answer, but I hope that being so close to, I guess the newer generations and the generations coming up, that I have this experience that they can kind of apply to their lives right now. Talking about it right now is where it's fresh and these things are happening is probably the best thing. And as I'm not gonna go on a tour, just like my plan, before, I do take every opportunity to talk to a cadet. I will give them my personal email. I will talk to them specifically about, hey, what are you struggling with? They just want to know sometimes, like, how did you conquer your mind? Let's talk about that piece. If I can do that, I want so desperately to be mentored on my side. So why wouldn't I want to, push that down? So as I said, I don't have all the answers, but I do accept the responsibility to share my story, humbly, of course, because I didn't deserve what I got. I did find myself at the right place at the right time. And probably the coolest thing that happened to me since graduating was getting a phone call on my personal cell phone from a number that was unrecognizable, and pick up the phone, and guy says, "Will you please hold for the chairman of the Joint Chiefs?" And I was like, yes. But what he had to say to me was the fact that he was so proud that in this moment of all this, this was a defining moment for our Army specifically, and then for our military, but for the Army specifically with all these choices about to be made, that we were brave enough to put ourselves out there. So I will continue to do that. I took that to heart. I was like, that was really cool that he recognized that there's a personal aspect to it too. And that I'll continue to take those words, and that yes, that was the right place at the right time, but now I can make decisions moving forward to help talk to others and through. I'm not going to stop flying as for right now. I'm pursuing other avenues, another aviation, hopefully the special ops community, we'll see, but that's where my heart lies. But leadership is the reason why I went to West Point, as I'm sure that you felt the same way. Sir, our job, my job is not necessarily in state is not to be that attack helicopter pilot. It's to be that leader that I went to West Point for. So if that means I have to talk to cadets all the time, then I'm going to do it. Does that answer your question, sir?
Thank you. Yes, it does. God bless your career.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, ma'am. C2 Celia Young from Cadet Squadron 16. Hi.
Okay, hi. Michael.
I spent the last semester at West Point on exchange,
Awesome.
and obviously your performance was a big topic of conversation there. And in knowing that, not to be creepy, but we learned about you, and I talked to people who taught you and who knew you. Just saying.
Yes, where's this going?
So obviously taking a great deal of pride in what you were doing, not only just as a woman, as a fellow service member, as someone of our generation, getting to this point. So you hear both positive and negative reactions to what you did and what you stand for. So my question is, and it made me mad, so I'm sure you weren't thrilled about it, how do you combat those people who say what you did means nothing or shouldn't have happened in the first place?
Okay, good question, thanks. So first of all, you should never have to defend yourself. If you find yourself in that position, then you probably did something wrong. That's how I look at it. I have had the extreme fortune going through school that even though in the moment, recycling was horrible, and staying there for 124 days as opposed to 63 was quite a difference, put a lot of stress, mind, body. But every time we got recycled and every time there was somebody else that recycled, we were able to influence, meet, and interact with 400 new men. And those people, whether they were in our company or not, they knew what was going on. They were watching to see if we were carrying the same weight. They were watching to see if we fell out during a ruck march. They were watching to see if we didn't know how to load and shoot the weapon that we were assigned. They are our biggest defenders because they know that we met the standard. I know it, but I don't have to tell somebody that. My Ranger buddies stick up for me. Our Ranger instructors that graded us, whether they sometimes go rogue or whatever, the mindset there was that there was a standard that they were being entrusted to uphold, and they rated us accordingly. So they get to defend me and say that I passed. All of my Ranger buddies, then the Ranger Training Brigade there that said, we are not going to do anything differently than we have always done. So that is how I deal with that. Obviously, you know, there are onesies and twosies, these comments that come across that really, you know, get you heated up, you know, like, oh, you didn't carry the same weight for a ruck march. You know, and the graded ruck march, you know, you have a full layout afterwards to make sure everyone has the same thing. I'm pretty sure if I didn't bring my wet weather gear that somebody would have said something. So when it comes to those things, you know, you can't fight that. There's always going to be people who don't want to see others succeed, but you can't let that get to you. I don't find my value in those people. I find my value in something much greater. So thank you for that question.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good morning and congratulations.
Thank you,
well
ma'am.
deserved. Obviously, to come up, there's also a very big group of us that are very, very proud of you. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Short, Department of History, actually teaching here as an Army officer.
Thank you,
They
ma'am.
let a couple of us sneak in. My question for you is, obviously you are a huge role model to a ton of people, both male and female, military and civilian. So who are your mentors, both military and civilian, that you look to?
Okay. Well, as a little girl, and actually all my life until I got to West Point, I was a soccer player. And I decided not to play soccer at the academy, which was like devastating for me at first, but I made lots of other decisions. But growing up my entire life, Mia Hamm was the bomb. I thought she was amazing. Great role model, pretty, smart, like all these things. You know, like you can be a really great athlete and pretty. You can be really, you know, smart and an athlete. These things, you know, and she was, you know, a good role model for my generation in that time. So growing up, that was really one of my, you know, outside influencing mentors. More personally, as a cadet, I had officers, obviously, that were sponsors, and I was very lucky to have former commanders of my father that were teaching or there as TACs that I was able to connect with. And just the fact that they cared just a little bit more about me because they knew my family made it that much more available for me to ask them questions and to really explore. I have also, after the academy, I really, honestly, I did not value or think to value, because you get stuck in this like lieutenant mode, you get pooped on all the time, you can never do anything right, so you live in this little hole, and you don't learn really to reach out except for sideways, you know, to your peers, like, hey, do you have this PowerPoint that I'm supposed to know how to do and I don't, you know? So I didn't really realize the value of this mentorship thing until after Ranger School. And as you can imagine, lots of people started to reach out. However, I was a little bit nervous to reach back out. And so actually on my plane ride to Army-Navy, I got this book from Harvard Business Review. And I think it's just called Mentorship. And I was like, I think somebody's trying to tell me something. So I read it, and I'm going through it, and it talks about, you know, the responsibilities on both ends of people to seek mentors and for people in positions to be mentors down and up the chain. And so that really got my mind thinking. So Army-Navy, I actually was the first time that I kind of stepped out and started asking, you know, like pursuing conversations with people that I respect and trust. I have had the privilege of being able to talk to people who are at the maneuver center, people who are, like, generally like influence all of the things that are happening with infantry and armor branches right now. But I think most specifically right now, my mentor is a General Retired Hogue, and he has been amazing. He doesn't live anywhere near me, so it's not like I can, go see him when I'm having, really hard, difficult, leadership question, or hey, where do I think I should take my career? But he's made himself so available in a very real way, even as a general, sorry, generals in the room, to be real people with me, as the lieutenant. And it's really cool. You guys have such an awesome opportunity here at the academy that you can ask these questions for these people, and maybe you don't think you have specific questions for them now because you're such in like the infancy, but start to build those relationships because they're going to be so necessary to carry on with you. Just being able to, on a personal level, open up and talk to these people has made such a difference in my life already. The commander of Cyber Command right now, a female, very strong, General Frost, great lady. I talk to her often as well. Been a very big influencer, helps me kind of just think through these things. And it's funny because you see, especially as a lieutenant, I see them as being so much older and wiser and, like they have all the answers, but they can really talk real to you, and it's so important. So I would encourage all of you, figure out what it is maybe that you need here. It might even be, a major or captain or something, but just like look for mentorship in those ways. Develop yourself in that way, because I didn't value it coming out of the academy. I didn't know to do that, but I do recognize the goodness of it now. Thank you, ma'am.
Good morning, ma'am. My name is Cadet Depenti at Detachment 630, Kent State University. My question is, what advice would you give to young females who want to pursue a combat career and how to combat that negative response?
Okay, first of all, you have to want it and want it bad. You have to want it so bad that their comments and their feelings and their opinions don't matter to you. That you are going to reach your potential and what you want to do because that's what you're doing. You're not allowing anybody else to put a ceiling with their expectations on what you can accomplish. That is my number one piece of advice for any lady who's trying to do, or any man who's trying to reach any type of job or success or whatever it is. If you limit yourself because you think that other people have an opinion, or you let other people limit you, you're never going to reach your full potential. I haven't always had this crazy mentality, be able to be positive about everything, but being able to recognize and look back on things and kind of hey, what can I take out of this as a success for me, and define that for me, and not let anybody else define that for me. So giving your heart, I think a basketball team in here somewhere? There you go. All right, I talked to them yesterday about reckless abandon. I'm all about this because I'm a very passionate person. Not everybody's the same way, but completely throwing yourself into something like I did for Ranger School, it's just it's that mentality. You can't let anybody else's issues, that song that I had playing when you came in, say I won't. Say I'm not going to pass Ranger School because I think I can, and I'm going to stay here until I do. So move forward with that mentality. Does that help?
Yes, thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am, C2C Tyson, Cadet Squadron 8, swoop 'em. First of all, thank you for coming to speak to us.
Yeah.
Second, you mentioned that you had to repeat the first phase of Ranger School. I think you've hinted at this throughout your speech, but what aspect of your personality, character, education, life experience, whatever it was, helped you mentally overcome that setback?
Okay, so a little bit what I did talk about already in my talk was this idea that I wasn't there for myself. It is a kick right in the stomach to get recycled because for whatever reason, whether it is that you weren't disciplined enough to stay awake on a patrol and you got too many no-goes, that would totally crush you, right? You're like, oh man, I'm worthless. Why can't I stay awake? This is horrible. Or you really aren't competently fulfilling your role. And that's hard too, because you embody these things. By the time you've gone, through the entire phase, you are so into it, and you're so when somebody tells you that you failed, and you just gave it everything you had, it stinks. It sucks the life out of you. And then, even worse, if your peers are telling you you stink and having to get recycled for something like that, I've watched grown men shed tears over that. Ranger students are more upset when they get recycled for peers or if they fail out because of peers, because that is literally their buddies who they work beside every day telling them that they're not it, they're not cutting it. So that's hard. For me, it was literally remembering that I was not there for myself and that I could learn something every single time I got recycled. The first time, I now knew exactly how to operate the radio I didn't know how to operate before. The third time, I now knew how to give a flawless operator brief. I learned these things and I was taking little pieces. Hey, I can do this better next time, whatever it is. Initially, yes, it sucks. I would stand there in despair and distraught, and you haven't slept. I was telling you on the day that they review, it's like 48 hours literally of no sleep, and you stand. They don't let you sit ever. So you stand, and you're walking, people falling over like flies, dropping out of the sky. It's horrible. So you're there, standing in despair, completely distraught. But then you go into the recycle. Sometimes it depends, whether it's a couple days or, if they have a break or something like that. It's like 2 weeks and you're in this purgatory. It feels terrible. But you have time to think about it, get your mind right, prepare yourself to learn something new.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Good morning, ma'am. Cadet Doom, Iowa State University, Detachment 250. You mentioned about how you kind of overcame your own mental barriers. How can you motivate others who are kind of struggling to overcome those barriers and kind of show them how to kind of push past those and inspire them as well?
I don't know. I hope that by talking to you today, that's helped a little bit, but a leadership style that I learned at school, and it was by trial and error, is that someone will always respect you more if you do the same hardship that they do. So being able to inspire people through what they're doing and being alongside them and doing it with them is probably the best way. So can I help prepare every single girl that now wants to go to Ranger School? No, probably not. That's not feasible. However, we could talk about things. I make myself available. Hey, this is what I did. It may not be the right answer for you, but this is what I did, and talk them through those pieces to help them get over their mental struggles or whatever it is. I don't have that right answer because everyone is a little bit different. My inspiration, doesn't come from someone on the sidelines going run faster, run faster. I'm shut up. I don't need that. So some people need that kind of coaching, So everybody's different. And being a leader is a really cool job because it's your job to figure out how to inspire others to do things. So in a mass like this, it's by talking to you and telling you my personal story. I got the chance today to level with you. I'm not anything crazy, special, superhuman. I'm you in 4 years, you know what I mean? I'm a lieutenant. I'm doing the job that I went to the academy to do, and I love it. So in this scale, it's that. At my unit, is one-on-one with my soldiers. As I move forward, I hope that it's with my platoon leaders that I get to develop as a company commander and move forward like that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am, Cadet First Class Kaylee Koska of Cadet Squadron 13, and similar to Leah, I actually went on exchange to West Point, was in Company G4.
Awesome.
First semester in fall of 2014. I know that we've been discussing mostly professional challenges, but as you mentioned yourself, ma'am, you are an average person who went out and did extraordinary things. And this may kind of seem like an off-the-wall question, but I just want to ask you, what is your next personal challenge that you're excited to accept? Whether that's relationship-wise, going out and accomplishing a new marathon. You said that you qualified for the Boston. What are you most excited about outside of your job?
Okay, cool. I qualified for the Boston Marathon as per my story 2 years ago, and that was a life goal of mine that I really wanted to do. Unfortunately, the day I started Ranger School was the day of the Boston Marathon. So I couldn't do it, and I was so mad because I was like, why? Why does it have to be this day? This is something I wanted to do. This is something I absolutely don't want to do. So I actually got it deferred. So, I was able to contact people, and it's deferred, and I got a reservation to run it this year. So that is what I'm focusing on right now. I don't like running 1,000,000 miles. the greatest thing in the world to me because my body doesn't like it, but it's a challenge for me always mentally, and I really love doing marathons because of that. Doing triathlon, marathon, those types of endurance sports really get me in this mindset that I use in my job. So that's my physical upcoming challenge. Personally, accept, like this conference actually has really helped me accept this idea that I am kind of an influence on some people, and that I do have the ability to share and to help people talk about what it is that they're struggling with or whatever it is moving forward, and to inspire people. And not that I didn't want to do that before, it's just that it's not what I came in the Army to do. So this idea of talking to the masses, that's not the idea, but talking to individuals. I want to make myself available to the individuals who really could see value in my story and who can relate, with who I am. And I think I exposed that pretty well today, and make myself available to those people. Relationship-wise, it's just me and my dog, so this is a struggle. Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, and good luck with your career.
Thank you.
Ma'am, C4C McMillan from Cadet Squadron 35. So you talked about your breaking point during Ranger School up in the mountain phase. I was wondering what your defining moment was, if it were different, something that put you onto the path of life that you are right now, or how you look at life right now.
Okay. I think my first crossroads really came at flight school, when I chose to fly Apaches. Everybody kind of expected me to pick that airframe going into our I guess it's kind of like branch night. You go in there's only this many Apaches, this many, Chinooks, this many whatever. And depending on your OML, the first person that goes up goes and, wipes that aircraft off. So my class specifically had fixed wing asset that we don't usually have. It's not normally offered to people coming straight out of flight school, but their community is getting older and they want to bring in new people. And so this was an opportunity that everyone was something like, this is the answer. You do this. You are number one in your class. There's one, you take it. And I was confused because I was like this moral conflict. Like I thought I knew what I wanted to do, and now I was questioning myself. I was trying to take advice from people who are much smarter and older than me. And I was trying to be true to myself. So and on that day, I ended up taking the fixed wing slot. And I got an assignment. I found out the day after that it was a specific assignment, and it was assigned to go to Korea and to fly planes back and forth over the DZ, the ones with all the wires, kind of doing that mission. And it became just super heavy on me, and that is not what I wanted to do. They're like, it's gonna be really cool, you can wear civilian clothes. I was like, why in the heck would I want to wear civilian clothes? There's no soldiers there. So I had this, I really took time, I went on runs in the woods. I was like, who can I talk to? I feel like this is not me. I need to clear my head. I need to make a decision. I ended up talking to a former commander of my dad's who was a mentor of mine and sponsor at West Point while I was going through. And I was like, sir, you know me. You know my dad. My dad wasn't too thrilled about me picking Apaches, and that was kind of something that was weighing on my mind. He didn't want his little girl going into harm's way. Understandable. And I asked him, I was like, sir, just help me make this decision. Help me decide for myself what it is that I truly want. And he asked me the basic question, and he's, where do you see yourself in 20 years? So I'm a planner. I'm like, this is a great game. Okay. 5 years I want to be doing this. 10 years I want to do this. And I was like, 20 years. 20 years, I want to be an attack battalion commander with troops and maneuvering aircraft all over the place and big explosions. This is what's going on in my mind, right? I don't think that's really what happens, but that was what's going on in my mind. And he was like, okay, well, there's your answer. And so at that moment, I kind of, I was taking a huge leap of faith. I have no idea where my career is going. I'm still in my infancy. In May, I'll be 4 years, graduated from West Point. I don't know where I'm going to be in 20 years. I never knew I would be going to Ranger School, that's for sure. And a million more things can change on my way through. But that was the crossroads. So then the following day, and I called my dad, and my initial response was like, I'm sorry, but I'm not taking the fixed-wing slot. And he's like, oh, criminy, like this is where we're going with this. And I'm like, but this is really what I feel in my heart that I want to do. And he was 100% behind me, and I went, and there was another classmate, and there's plenty of people who were waiting in line that totally wanted that slot, so I switched. But I never would have known, I didn't know the right answer. There was really no right answer, is what I wanted to do. I had to figure out really, truly for myself, even though all these other people were telling me what the right thing to do was, it wasn't the right thing for me. And up until this point, I've been very fulfilled by, my position as a platoon. I've been a platoon leader ever since I've got here. I've really got to be with troops what I wanted to do. Specifically, if I was in Korea flying planes, 9 hours out of the day, you don't have a platoon there. You don't have soldiers. And that's why I went into the military, to do the leader thing with the soldiers. So that is probably my biggest crossroads right now as a lieutenant. Ask me in 20 years, I'll tell you something different.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you for your questions. At this point, we only have time for one more question.
Ma'am, Cadet First Class Alex McLaughlin from Cadet Squadron 5. My question is there any particular instance where the Ranger mentality that you acquired during Ranger training has helped you overcome an adversity in your job as an Apache pilot?
In my job as an Apache pilot?
Or after graduation, ma'am?
Sure. Every time I run, I say the Ranger Creed, so I don't actually stop because I really don't want to be running. So there's that. The Creed is great for lots of things. As an Apache pilot specifically, I remember that was the reason why I went in the first place. And whether I continue to do that job, whatever's next for me, eventually as a commissioned officer, I won't necessarily be doing all the flying, but that tactical piece, very, very important. As I go into, an S3 role and I'm doing planning and those types of things. I can always carry that with me. So yes, I remember on a daily basis why it was that I went to Ranger School. And probably the coolest thing, it actually happened 2 days ago, so the day before this started, one of our platoon sergeants in the company, he was like, listen to me talk to some of our soldiers. And he just looked at me and he's like, ma'am, you're different. And I was like, in a good or bad way? And he's like, in a really awesome way. And I was like, awesome, that makes me feel really good. How? Why? And he's like, you have the bigger picture. He's like, you see the bigger picture now, and it's really refreshing, and it's nice that you can do that. And he said, and you always take a knee whenever someone's talking to you. So that's a big thing in Ranger School. If you stop, you're on a knee. So I guess that I haven't gotten rid of yet. But what my platoon sergeant said really hit home for me, because that was a transformation that I didn't even know really happened or that would be visible by other people. But it's the way that I think about things, and really I couldn't have replaced that by any other training other than what I received, especially at this point in my career, this level of my career.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.